So, hello guys, my name is Gabriel, and let me introduce myself. I work at this course today, and that's me with my beautiful dog. And this talk was made while I was a maintainer of Meteor, so you'll hear me talk about a little bit of Meteor. And before that, I worked at Privacy. That's a Brazilian company and OnlyFans-like. And at the time I wrote this, at the time I worked there, we had like around 1 million active users. So, and I'm passionate about developer experience, and this talk will feature a lot about it. And yeah, let's get started. So, how this talk is divided, I'm going to talk about what is tRPC and why should you care about it, what's problems that it solves, and why should you care about making a similar one from scratch, and that's a really nice thing to do. So, what is tRPC? And you'll see this really nice video play on replay a lot of the times, but tRPC is a way to create a type-safe API or a remote procedural call, and it creates procedures on the server. It's quite nice. Let me play it again. Voila. And you can create it on the server, and it will tell you if you do something wrong on the client. It's really good to create. You should test it out on their website. And it's makes really easy to call on the client. And that's like the TLDR of tRPC, and like should test it. It's really good. And let's move on. Whoops. And the problem that it solves a little bit about documentation, because you can dot your way through it. So let's say you have a users module. You can use like API.users and .something, and you know what resources can you call. And that's really good, especially if you're starting your project or like you're starting this new company. It's really helpful. It gives you the same way as Ruby and Rails gives you a way of creating something. You have a way of creating procedures and everything and queries on tRPC, which increases a lot of dev productivity. So you don't have to reason about how to create something, because everywhere you see it has a way of creating things, and makes your code a little bit more sound in a way that you don't get this kind of really fun message that something isn't a function. And yeah, it's annoying, and I had a lot of few times with it. So it helps you a lot. And you know when things change. Because if you, as you saw in the previous slide, if you change something on the server, it will tell you on the client. So yeah, it's pretty good. Well, and why should you make one from scratch? So that you understand how it works. And that's really good, understanding things, how they work. And making something tailored, just specific for your use case. Because sometimes you don't have the luxury of changing your whole API just to use tRPC, or have already your own Express or something, and you want to use something similar to it, but you don't have the means to change it. So we'll get through it now. So the fun part of how it works, it's by JS proxies, and it's always have been JS proxies. You probably are using a JS proxy right now and you don't know it, and that's the fun thing about this meme. It's like you're using one and everything's JS proxies. So the funny thing is everyone, like every major browser supports it, so you don't have like an issue using it. And how it works is quite fine. You define a client, and we'll be discussing this later, and you define a shape of it, and you say like, yeah, I want to create a proxy client, and it should have this shape. And whatever you call it, this path, it will be logged there. We'll be doing something with it, and we'll get through it. And the fun thing is you have docs, as you can see it. Like I defined it on my shape as a type. I defined some doc about it, and it shows here, and it gets you the IntelliSense. So if I do dot nested.sum, it will give me the IntelliSense, and that's insane for like everything. Is like you don't have to guess which API you're using. So this is a piece. This is exactly the piece that comes from tRPC. If you can get the whole gist here on this link. And the fun thing that I want you guys to look is this piece right here. I define my proxy setting as this one. I just will display the filter as it is and the path as it is. And when you get here to create the proxy client, you get the get. That's not really interesting to us to know, but the apply is interesting. I will call whatever function I had here before, and I will filter it before. So if we go back a little bit, oops, here, for example, I defined the method here, and what it will do, it will pass it in the path. So nested and sum will be here, and the args will be here. So we can see it here again. The path is what I get before that I was passing by in my create proxy client. And yeah, it sounds really, how I can say it, like really theoretical now, but we'll get to a practical example so that we don't live in the theoretical world. So first, I gotta talk about Meteor, and for those that haven't used it before, it's a remote procedural call framework that you define on a server a few methods. For example, this sum method, it's a dumb example, but you could use like a database call or something else. And on the client, you're gonna be calling it with the name as you provided. And some of you may see the issue here is that you may lose the name of it. So for example, you can call it sum today, but you can call it a whole other name, and if you change it, you'll never know that you changed it. So that's the issue. You don't have like what's going on in this name, and also the params. I can pass whatever. This is JavaScript, so yeah, you can pass whatever and things will work or not. So to solve and address this issue, I've came up with this snippet that I use for a library that I will show later. That's basically, I will create a proxy as the same as I did. I will join the paths, and I will use Meteor call async, using that path as a string and using the args. And I'll have on the server a similar thing just for creating the methods. And for testing things, I will just like pass it in the server method, the server thing, the server object, and it will work. Like it will have everything as showed, like in IntelliSense, and when you call it, it will call the server and it will work. So you can see it yourself and test it yourself in this beautiful repo here. And give it a star if possible, sorry. And the takeaways for this talk were that you can build this for your company or to third-party developers if you're selling some kind of API, so that people can know when things change and they don't get lost. Like when you change an API, you don't have to be all the time changing the docs somewhere. The docs are the code itself, and if something changes and isn't working, they will see while they're coding. So you move the issue from having to go to another website to their own VS Code view. And you can build to adapt your current API and increase in productivity. So in our example that I showed, I was calling the Meteor API or just doing a console.log, but you can also add a caching option, or you can do all sorts of things. On my library, I use even an integration with React Query, and I have a lot of small things that I chose specifically for integrating Meteor with React Query. So that was the key takeaways. And yeah, thanks for your attention. You can find me always as Gabriel Grubba on every major platform. And yeah, that was pretty much it.